Ransomware attacks have evolved over the last few years in a couple different ways. When ransomware originally started, it simply locked your files and demanded money. And that was a pretty strong tool to get funds illicitly for these attacker organizations. Later on, adding the threat of leaking personal or private information if the ransom was not paid out, it really came about as companies started to increase their usage of proper backups. So then when the attacker would ransom the systems and demand payment, the attacker would just be ignored as the company would restore from a clean backup. Now, what is becoming prevalent, especially with companies that are publicly traded, is the attacker will ransom your data, will demand payment. They will also threaten to leak some of that data, and they will go the step further, as has been seen recently, and they will report you to certain governing bodies. A fairly large organization was essentially snitched on by the ransomware operators when they produced an SEC filing to report the data breach that the attackers themselves had done. It's called like an SEC K1 form. So they filed it on behalf of the business that they were holding ransom. Ransomware tactics have become more sophisticated simply because many of the threat actors are working on developing the ransomware tools to make them faster, more efficient, also to create these packages that could be used by others to commit ransomware related attacks. One area that we have seen is oftentimes the ransomware operator will leave a method of communication and will actually be willing to negotiate with the business depending on a number of factors. Ransomware negotiators themselves have actually become a popular field to go into. Oftentimes they maybe are former law enforcement or just cybersecurity professionals that have learned the lingo. Another ransomware tactic that has come about is simply that a ransomware designer may sell the kit to others and allow them to commit the attacks themselves. So what this does is that somebody who's very knowledgeable in writing the software, they can avoid the risk of being caught or arrested by just giving somebody else the tools to use. It would be like somebody manufacturing a firearm in their garage and selling it to a criminal to go do whatever they want with. The person manufacturing the tool takes a small fee and actually, in some cases, will provide tech support to the ransomware user themselves. And the path to getting into this kind of work is way too easy to obtain, and it's way too low of a cost for it to be something that people would be very tempted to do. Some of the new ransomware protection strategies that we are seeing are things like analytics that provide information when a number of files are being manipulated. So in those cases, it would detect the initial handful of files starting to be encrypted in the ransomware process, and then stopping all the processes, isolating the computers, other techniques to stop it, to minimize the amount of damage done. Oftentimes, the attack starts with a single endpoint, but then spreads throughout the network. So by detecting it quickly, you're able to isolate it to the initial infection and keep that from spreading. Other strategies include the use of cyber deception tools, where the attacker may think they have landed on a vulnerable system and they may attempt to launch ransomware, and that creates an alert so that the defenders understand that one of their fake devices, or honeypots as we call them, are actually being interacted with and is under attack.